What's up, guys? Thanks for tuning into this video on Elvis is the Man. So about 3-4 days ago, I got done listening to the audiobook from Lisa's memoir, her autobiography. I'm so glad that she wrote it. We actually have her thoughts on record forever. I got the audiobook, and the day after I completed it, which was about 3 days ago now, I did a long live stream. It was like 2 hours, and I went to Facebook and Instagram and did live streams there. But then I realized, maybe I should condense this because I really want a lot of people to, hear my thoughts on this book, and they're not necessarily going to watch a 2-hour live stream. So let me do this. And as I was reading or listening to the book, I took notes. So I'm just going to read them off to you. And we're going to pick up in chapter 3, 4, and 5. If you haven't seen the first part, which is chapter 1 and 2, I suggest you check it out. So anyway, we get into chapter 3. This is just after Elvis died. And there's a lot of very controversial things that come up in chapter 3, 4, and 5. And so I'm just going to go ahead and say it. And hopefully YouTube is kind to me and just understands that I'm just, reiterating what she said. So we talk about, Lisa talks about her getting into drugs. And she says, thank God it didn't do heroin because that would have been worse. She just sniffed and snorted. So she did weed, cocaine. She said that this was also the phase where Lisa felt shipped off everywhere. Her dad was out of her world. Memphis was out of her, that's her old life. She didn't even go back there too much. Priscilla would say, if you're not good, you're not going back to Memphis, to visit all her old friends and family. So Priscilla would be getting boyfriends, and one of them was most notably Mike Edwards. Lisa says that Mike molested her many times during Priscilla and his courtship, I guess you could say. Not courtship, it was a full-fledged relationship. They lived together. So Lisa says that Mike Edwards would be like, I'm going to tell you, or I'm going to teach you what boys are going to do to you when you get older. And like I said, if you haven't read this book or listened to the audiobook, you may not want to keep going because I'm going to just tell you everything that was said. So Lisa says that, so she was, I don't remember the exact year they started dating, Priscilla and Mike Edwards, but Lisa said that Mike started this thing where he would start touching her chest, normally while she would be in bed, sleeping or trying to get to sleep, or in the middle of the night, touch her chest, touch her in between her legs, and say, this is what boys are going to do to you. Lisa realized that if I act like I'm waking up, Mike realizes that and stops. Lisa a lot of times would tell Priscilla. She says Priscilla would just make him apologize. A lot of good that does. And his excuse would be like, well, this is how we teach kids back where I'm from or something. I'm like, what kind of excuse is that? This really shows Priscilla's judgment and how she was putting herself over Lisa. Like I said, Lisa said she always just felt shipped off. And those of you who would always debate me about Priscilla and, I didn't care for Priscilla, I thought she was cold toward Elvis. What are you going to do now that this stuff is out from Lisa herself, her own daughter? I mean, we're already saying how horrible it was that, after she passed away, Priscilla took Riley to court about Graceland. What do you do about this stuff now? How do you justify this? So the molestation allegedly went on for a few years. Mike lived with them. They didn't have a good relationship, but she says for some reason that she sort of felt sorry for Mike Edwards at the same time. Lisa says that sometimes when Mike was doing this to her, that he would tell her to turn around, and she thinks that it was because he was pleasuring himself. Just disgusting. I can't believe Priscilla actually let this stuff go on. So that's one thing I thought was very surprising. I heard about it, but I never really read about it. Like I read Child Bride. It doesn't really mention that in there too much that I recall. But this one was definitely eye-opening. And then we get into chapter 4. She talks a lot about meeting Danny Keough and how she, Lisa was into leather jackets. She was into Pink Floyd. She says the record, not Off the Wall, Dark Side of the Moon or something, it really spoke to her. And she was into wearing leather jackets, like I said, and she was rebellious. She was shipped off from school to school. Lisa says she didn't know the point of school. Maybe if she, she would just go in here, go in there. And she was like, well, maybe if I knew that you're actually supposed to go here, learn something so you can use it later in life, maybe I would have made a little better use of my time there. But chapter 4, I listened to it. It was interesting, but I wasn't too into her learning about how, she fell in love with Danny, who was in a band, and all the girls liked him, and he was, playing hard to get, and so was she, and yada, yada, yada. That part wasn't too interesting to me. It got interesting again when we go into chapter 5 and her meeting Michael Jackson. Now, she says one of the things that she found interesting about Michael Jackson was that his high-pitched voice, the feminine type voice, that was just an act. He actually had a normal voice. And, there are some video out there of Michael being caught using his regular voice, not that high-pitched, soft tone voice. She said that was just an act. So she started talking with Michael Jackson like 93 when the allegations were going on. I don't want to say too much, like trigger words on here. She says that Michael Jackson, she thinks, was actually interested in her, back in the 80s. Lisa says that Michael actually remembered when her and Michael met, that she didn't remember her and Michael meeting in 74 when Elvis had them meet in Vegas, but Michael remembers their meeting. And throughout the 80s, Lisa says that Michael, through his agents and managers, would try to have and would have meetings with Priscilla. And Lisa says this was really in hopes that Priscilla would bring Lisa so Michael could meet her. So Michael was into her, but things just got sidetracked. And then before you knew it, Lisa was married. So this was about 93. And Michael Jackson, she says, didn't like earthquakes. And he was living in California. There was an earthquake and he went to Nevada. Well, that's when he summoned for Lisa. There was only a few people that Michael Jackson would talk to. One of them was Lisa. She traveled all the way there and stayed in the hotel that he was staying at. And Ben and Riley were born at this time. They were little kids. Lisa says that her marriage to Danny was on the rocks. And he and Lisa would spend a lot of time together, Michael Jackson and Lisa. And they would watch movies. She said they really clicked. There was nobody that had the type of aura of her father, Elvis, like Michael Jackson. So Michael Jackson was the only one that came even close to having any type of the charisma that her dad had. And in a way, I think that's probably why Lisa was so drawn to him, because it was like kind of like a connection like she had with her dad. In a way, she could relate to it that way. So eventually their relationship started breaking up, she says, because Michael Jackson would get into the drugs and things he was taking. He said it was because he had pain from his scalp back when he damaged his scalp in 1984 for the Pepsi commercial. Lisa called a lot of BS, and she says that when they were dating, Michael Jackson liked how frank Lisa was to him and the staff, but later on, when she was very straightforward about him and what she thought that people in his life were doing to him, and how she was very forward about how she felt about Michael Jackson, what he was doing to himself, Michael didn't like that and would push Lisa aside. That obviously put a strain on their relationship. Lisa says that she couldn't find him. Eventually, Lisa says that she was getting people from Michael Jackson's camp saying that he's going to divorce you, and Lisa was being advised that she should probably divorce him first, so she divorced him. She finds out later when Michael Jackson calls her that he never had any intention of doing that, and he was very sad and heartbroken that they actually broke up and she divorced him. The last time they really hung out, I think, was in 97, she says, and it's not really that relevant to this story, but for those of you who are Michael Jackson fans, the His Story album that Michael Jackson made in like 95, 96, Lisa was there in the studio for a lot of that. And she says during the MTV Awards, that famous part where him and LisaMarie kiss, well, she says that was not planned at all. And she actually started to think, like, did he just get me with me for like novelty? Like, is he just trying to like maybe like, am I like his beard, so to speak? Or, did he just get with me just to have Lisa's the Presley name? Not that he obviously took it, but just kind of like, was this all for show? Also, another thing I found interesting was Michael Jackson told Lisa that he was a virgin up until her. And Lisa says that she thought that he would want to wait till marriage. Well, Michael Jackson said, I've waited long enough. And, Lisa was Michael's first, and it was before marriage. So Lisa was into Scientology at this time. Like, And she says later in this book, which I'll reveal in the next couple, or the next video, which deals with the final chapters, she says that like she wouldn't even take an Advil. So she says there was always part of her that felt an urge, or she felt that could get over into addiction. But because she was in Scientology and they were very hardcore on taking no pills, no drugs, no nothing, she didn't do any drugs since her teenage years. And she says in retrospect that actually helped me stay off for as long as she did. She actually did not get into the pills, the opioids herself until her twins were born, but I'll save that part for the third phase of this video series. So I really enjoyed listening to this audio book. I will get the physical copy, but to those of you who just have the physical copy, I recommend you get the audiobook because, like I said in other videos, Lisa actually... Sorry, my phone ran out of storage. So I was going to say, you got to get the audiobook because Lisa recorded all her thoughts and everything that she wanted in this book. She recorded it on like cassette tape or maybe iPhone voice messages or something like that. So Riley just sat there and listened to all of Lisa's thoughts, and then Riley wrote them. Riley wrote them down. So she listened to Lisa's audio, wrote it down. In the audiobook, we have Julia Roberts reciting Lisa's words. Then we have Riley adding her feelings and thoughts on the matters, what she wants to add. And then we also, at the beginning of end of most chapters, we have Lisa's actual audio, so it's a treat.